Start the
Okay.
Okay, we're started.
okay. Thank you. And welcome to the October meeting of the North Carolina State Bar's Standing Committee on Legal Assistance for Military Personnel. I'm Brandy Vickery. I'm the chairman of the committee. I'd like to start out with reminding everyone that in accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, it's the duty of every member of this committee to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict. Does any committee member have any known conflict of interest or appearance of a conflict with respect to any matters coming before the committee today? If so, please identify the conflict or appearance of conflict and refrain from any undue participation in the particular matter involved. All right. Again, I'd like to welcome all of you here today. Again, I don't know if introductions, it might not be a bad idea to introduce maybe the executive committee at this point. Again, I'm Brandy Vickery. I'm bar counselor from Goldsboro, the Wayne Lenore Green district. That's the 9th bar district. Gil?
Gil Beck from Asheville in the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Okay. And next, who we have next?
Kirk Warner from Smith Anderson.
Kirk.
David Hayden from Smith Anderson.
I'm Mark Sullivan from Raleigh.
Bonnie Shields from Apex.
Frank Whitney from Charlotte.
Judge.
John Brooker from UNC Chapel Hill.
Okay.
Oh, Colin Willoughby, just visiting in Raleigh.
Thank you, Mr. President. All right. Well, we'll probably have some more introductions as we go. Again, we have our a good bit of business to go through today. Let me first ask that everyone, I suppose everyone has the minutes that were prepared by Mike Archer. Mike, you got anything you want to mention about the minutes? If you've had a chance to review those, I certainly don't. We'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll move the approval of those minutes as submitted.
And I will second that amendment.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of approval of the minutes signify by, how about just say aye or wave your hand?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right. So now we're down to the CLE report already. So call on Mike and John Brooker. John, maybe you would.
Sure,
Just
Mike,
start
do
us
you
off.
want to start, or, I mean, Mike there? I don't see Mike. Well, Mike, are you there? I guess Mike's not there. Well, to be honest, I don't have much of a report. I don't know what to say. Because of the pandemic, I have no committal answers to this. I can tell you the chance of an in-person CLE at UNC in March is effectively zero. And to even firm down a date, even if we were to try and do something online, is just not possible now. From a UNC law perspective, we have not finalized our spring academic calendar yet, because we're trying to figure out what methods of instruction we are going to use, and whether we'll be in person in part, completely remote. Is there going to be a spring break? Is there not going to be a spring break? The start time. So there's just way too much up in the air right now for UNC to give a definitive answer and to set a date for a UNC sponsored CLE. Now, that doesn't mean UNC doesn't want to do it. I mean, Dean Brinkley and I desperately want to do it. It's just a matter of even if we eliminate the physical logistics and we focus on Zoom, we just don't know the time frame of what day we could do it because of the nature of the semester. So, you know, I trying to think of potential alternatives if we wanted to do something in the spring, and I'll be quiet in just a minute to talk through that. But Ellie Morales from Wake Forest and I were talking about, is there something we could do jointly if it was related to Zoom? But the problem with the law schools hosting it now is the indefinite nature of the law school academic calendar right now. Over.
And Ellie, you want to chime in on any of that?
Hi, everybody. I'm Ellie. This is my first time coming to the meeting, so thanks for having me. I just joined Wake Forest faculty this summer as the clinic director of the Veterans Clinic. So again, happy to be here. I used to be in the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Middle District of North Carolina. But I'll just echo what John said. I'm happy to co-host once everything is solidified for the spring. We're a little bit more advanced or a little farther down the road from UNC. We're starting to solidify the course schedule for the spring, but pretty likely that any kind of conference or CLE would be over Zoom.
And as you will see, to say that UNC does have an academic calendar posted, but there are discussions as to whether it will stay that way given the nature of the pandemic. So it is still up in the air though. So there's a deep desire to do it, but without the ability to set dates and how it works and what our CLE staff, who those of you attended last year know, my CLE staff, Laura Goff and Jackie, they did all the work along with my students who provided the support, the Valor students who supported it on their own time and own dime. They're the students, and if they have classes and academic commitments, it's just hard to do those things. So I hate to have that as the answer, but especially with the uptick, I know at Wake Forest, they have a surge in COVID as of today. They have changed their status from yellow to orange. I know because my daughter goes there. So with that going on, I can just tell you for the academic environments, it's tough for us right now. Over.
Brandy, let me weigh in a little bit also on if LAMP can't do and UNC can't do, which it sounds like, and I'm very familiar with this, with John and I have talked. In the spring, one thing to kind of put out there also is there is the MVL section of the Bar Association has a CLE on November 19th. John's speaking at it. And it's essentially representing veterans before the VA and the various appeal courts above that. So that may be at least something for our members to kind of put on their tickler. It's November 19th. It's an all-day affair, essentially 8:30 to 4:30. And I do plug that in the sense of, that's one of the things we co-sponsor and work with the state bar on. So this would be at least a substitute in this COVID case.
Thank you, Kirk.
This is Mike Archer. I would mention that the LAMP committee of the American Bar Association, it has some CLEs, one of which is going to be on the 30th of October concerning consumer issues as they relate to the military in particular. Again, not the same as, the LAMP CLE that we're used to, but at least another brick in the wall.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, next we'll move on to the major command updates. Who'd like to start that?
Well, if I can, I'll go ahead and start that. I've handed in the written highlights from Camp Lejeune, in part because there's a long schedule. I saw a lot of information, a lot of topics this meeting. So I'll just make it short and focus on the first item, which is that we have a pre-deployment video that is available on the public website. So anybody could use that. And you have the written materials have the IP address. The genesis of that was it looked like we were going to be deploying a lot of people from here to New York City, medical folks and some logistics folks. It turned out that we deployed less people than we anticipated, and also making the movie took longer than we thought. But now we have that, and it's available, and I think it's a good piece of gear. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Mike. How about Bragg?
This is Captain Buchanan here from Fort Bragg. Nothing major on our end. We just wrapped up our annual warfighter exercise, which took up quite a bit of time for the past couple weeks or months, which was historic, and that it was the largest warfighter exercise we've ever done. So it was all of Corps and then all of our down trace units. But it was a good experience, went pretty well. For LAMP news, we're still thinking of ways we can assist Gold Star families with taxes, even if we, our volunteer leaves. Current status hasn't really changed. Our CG isn't interested in using military personnel to run a tax center. So we're still trying to think of ways that we can get around that and still be helpful. So I'm open to ideas and suggestions if you guys can think of any ways that we can still support the Gold Star families in that aspect. And I think that's about it. So I'm open to questions if anyone has any.
Brandy, let me ask you a question if I may.
Sure.
Captain, what's going on? Are you seeing in legal assistance and otherwise issues relating to the movement or stop movement orders because of PCS being held off and delayed inbound and outbound? I know it's affecting the K through 12 arena as to enrollment and moving families in and out. But have you seen that in connection with increased domestic violence, increased psych issues, anything at all as a result of that stop movement order? Can we quantify that?
Sir, we're not tracking any issues in legal assistance. As far as increases in that, I'd say we don't doubt that that's happening. But as far as any statistics or tracking an increase in that, I don't think we have any hard data on it. We've gotten a couple issues, mostly with people trying to get in or out of leases, but that's nothing significant than it was prior to COVID.
Yeah, I know part of the thing is if family care plans and packets have to be kind of revised in order to have, if you're a stay-at-home and working parent and you've got kids that are having to stay at home and do online schooling, things like that, I suspect there's duty officer roster shifts. There's all kinds of things potentially coming out of that. So I'd be on the watch for that.
Roger that.
Any other one from Fort Bragg? How about the Air Force? How about Seymour? You got it. Okay, it may not have anybody with Seymour.
Hey, Brandy, it's Rick Fay with the North
Okay.
Carolina National Guard.
Okay, Rick.
How are you?
Great. How about you?
Doing great. Thanks very much. Appreciate that, the opportunity just to tell you a little bit about where we are. We've just finished demobilizing about 3,300 soldiers who came back from their year-long mission in Kuwait. So that included our Captain Katie Reynolds, who is our Chief of Legal Assistance. So that effort started in late June, and we just finished up about a week ago. Captain Tom Murray, who's been involved with LAMP, has left us. He's gone off orders, and so Tom has returned to his family and working through some things, both with the pharmacy and on the legal side. But Michelle Weiner-Pike, who is on today and is going to talk, I know, a little bit about publications. Michelle and her team has welcomed Chris Heim, who's also working legal assistance with us, and Katie will be back in December. We're also going to brag on my folks a little bit. In July, TJAG got on the call with his special assistant, General Christine, and we were just thrilled to get the 2019 Chief of Staff Legal Assistance Award, again, for excellence in legal assistance. So we're happy about that one.
Wow.
Great,
So-
terrific.
Yep. So we're excited about that. We're continuing on with, and we're back to doing in-person estate planning and some other appointments on a limited basis. As far as our 2021 tax season, we'll have to confer and see what we're doing, but I think are going to try to do certainly our very limited number of returns that we do. We were on track to have a record year this past year, but that did not come to fruition. So we will see where that goes, but that's all from the North Carolina National Guard. Thanks.
Thanks, Rick. That's great. All right, we'll go to the new business. Let's go back to Buy Shields, our webmaster.
Thank you. I distributed earlier through the good offices of Jennifer Porter the report. I just want to touch on a couple of things. We continued to have inquiries about the use of the LAMP website. As I indicated in my report, they range quite a bit. One was a request by a retired military member to help him find a missing document. Another one was a request by a private company that they be allowed to link their blog about mattress discounts to our website. Those were handled by our established procedure very adroitly by said bar counsel. Thank you, Jennifer. We had 4 updated articles or resource materials since the last meeting. On August 24th, we had an updated Legal Eagle, How to Find a Military Divorce Attorney. And on the 26th of August, an updated Silent Partner entitled Docs for Division. Mark Sullivan was the author of both of those. Mark, anything you want to share with the committee members about those new postings?
There, I took my mute off. Those were just necessary updates. I'm also working on an update for the Clerks and Workers Guide to explain to people doing child support in county clerk's offices and caseworker offices how military pay works, how garnishment works, how to get cooperation of military personnel, how to understand the leave and earning statement, and how the SCRA works. But nothing to add to that. Thank you for all of your help on that.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, we also had 2 additional new or updated materials. On the 1st of October, in the additional resources tab, we had the Property Manager's Guide to the SCRA. And on the 13th of October, we had a revised Take 1 on early lease termination for service members and dependents. The author of both was Mike Archer. Mike, any comments to share with the committee on those 2 upgrades?
Yes, principally, the changes had to do with the August 14th change to the SCRA relating to stop movement orders, which is also an agenda item. But basically, it was to keep those articles current with the law.
Okay, outstanding. Thank you, Mike, for staying on those articles. Appreciate it. We, through the good offices of our bar council, spearheading that, are attempting to keep our LAMP committee membership roster up to date. Jennifer has been focusing efforts recently on our ex officio members. Jennifer, I don't know if you wanted to share anything at this point about successes, failures, and obstacles in that endeavor.
So as I email out the agendas, I often get feedback about who's the new chief of legal assistance at the military offices, but sometimes we don't get that information. So I would just encourage the military members, as there are changes within who is the point of contact for the legal assistance office, to just let me know so that I can keep that current. I have we have some offices listed under the ex officio membership section where we don't actually have a point of contact. So I have gone out to the websites and tried to update the addresses as best I can. And once I get through just making sure there aren't any updates from this meeting, I'll go ahead and have Jennifer update all that on the website.
Thank you very much on behalf of everyone for undertaking and spearheading that effort, Jennifer. Appreciate it. One last item, we have established a new LAMP committee subcommittee under the leadership of Mark Sullivan. Its primary purpose is to research and write a silent partner addressing how to obtain necessary information from the federal government relevant to child support and pension division cases. I think this is the tip of the spear. We're taking a big step forward in trying to galvanize our resources to aid in updating our materials. Mark, anything you wanted to add about where you stand on the immediate focus and the long-term goals?
Yeah, thanks very much. The genesis of this was questions from Michelle Weiner Pike and several other legal assistance attorneys to me about 6 months ago on how to get documents and information from the government. This information is necessary for legal assistance attorneys to put together a settlement or a pension division clause for dividing military retired pay. And examples of things that they were having trouble obtaining were the RAS, the retiree account statement, the LES, the leave and earning statement, which contains valuable information on it, points statement for those in the reserves, retirement orders, the discharge statement, which is DD Form 214, and things like that. And they just weren't able to get them. And what I found out is that while DFAS has been very stingy, Defense Finance and Accounting Service has basically said, if you can't get Joe Blow, the service member, to sign a release, then go to federal court. And none of us wants to do that. On the other hand, state guard offices frequently cooperate because they are state government, not federal government. And so what I wanted to do is put together a comprehensive document which will help people, both legal assistance attorneys as well as people who are members of the North Carolina State Bar who are working this area in private practice. Everybody needs to know how to get information and documents from the government. So instead of a silent partner, what I'm putting together is a document called the DIG Directory. The Disclosure of Information from the Government Directory is what DIG stands for. I put out a draft about a week or 10 days ago. Mike Archer was kind enough to jump on it right away and point out 3 errors that I already had made, 3 corrections which needed to be made. So I made those yesterday, and I will be putting out a revised, updated version. And in our subcommittee meeting, we'll talk about spreading the work around to make sure that we can get information from each branch of service, each subcomponent, like the Navy Reserve or the Air National Guard, so we can get correct information to attorneys on what they need to know about digging out this information and using it in the work that they do.
Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you very much, and all the committee members for getting us started down in a very important supplement to what we've had in the past to rely upon to expand what we make available and keeping it current. Brandy, that's all I have. Thank you very much out here.
Thank you, Bai. Speaking before we go to Michelle's report, we're talking about this new subcommittee that you said as Mark is spearheading. Mark is pretty much the committee, I think, at this point. I believe maybe, let's see, you do have someone with you, right, Mark?
Well, as of an hour ago, I did, because what we had hoped to have, Brandy, is a representative from Pope Army Airfield at this meeting as well. And an old friend of mine, Kristen Coyne, is now the Chief of Legal Assistance and Preventive Law at Pope. She had agreed to be on the meeting until a day ago when there was a new COVID outbreak which meant that she, as well as the major, who is SJA at Pope, became unavailable because they had to take over everything that was coming up and hitting the walls. So I spoke with Chris an hour ago, and I said, Chris, you understand that by not being here, you're going to get appointed as chair of this subcommittee. And she said, well, that's the way we've worked in the past, Mark, so I guess I'll undertake it. So I talked to Chris Coyne, K-R-I-S, short for Kristen, Coyne, C-O-Y-N-E, who is the Chief of Legal Assistance and Preventive Law at Pope AAF, to be the chair of the Information Disclosure Committee that will work this project. And the goal would be to improve the DIG directory and make it available then and broadcast it to all members of the North Carolina State Bar who are interested, so that they can find under additional resources on the website that BI is managing, a single place where they can locate answers to what can you get, how do you get it, where do you go to get it, and what are you not able to get. So that so far is Chris and Mark working on this committee, and I had hoped to have my associate, Vanessa Puhak, who is a former Army officer, on it, but she has conflicts this afternoon. That will be a third member of the committee. I'd like to get other people on the committee as well.
And I'll just mention that Meredith Egan from Fort Bragg had signed up for the committee too. There she's
Right.
waving.
Thank you, Meredith. We appreciate that. So, Mark, I take it you feel comfortable in the recruitment there of Chris to be the chair of the committee?
Yes.
Okay. It's done then. Is that right? I better ask the boss though. What about that? Are we good on that, Jennifer?
You can appoint whoever you want, Brandy.
Hey, so it is then. Chris Coyne. And again, thank you all. Meredith, thank you so much for being willing to be part of this also. Mark has, he sort of let us know that he was going to he's going to put a little like a framework together. And he, as often is the case with, with Mark Sullivan, he has gone above and beyond. Thank you, Mark, for what you've done. That's a good, it doesn't do it justice to call it a great start. It's wonderful. Okay, let me jump back then to Michelle in the subcommittee for updating NC publications.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Hope you're doing well. So as you guys probably are aware, we have a subcommittee that is working to update the publications on the LAMP committee website. It looks like we have made some progress in this as of this week, actually. We've reached out to the UNC School of Law pro bono program, and they are willing to provide some resources over their winter break. Some students will be hopefully available to help us do some of the, I hate to call it grunt work on that, but it is what it is. So that's our hope. And also need to continue to reach out to some of the other law schools in the area to see if we can recruit more law students to assist us with that. That's essentially where we are as of right now.
Rainey, you're on mute.
Well, I was just thanking Michelle for all the wonderful words. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, now move on to Mark for state National Guard compliance with state court orders. Mark's muted too.
I'm sorry, I was mute for a minute there. Can you hear me now?
Gotcha.
Okay. Those two entries are basically what I just finished talking about 3 minutes ago, and that is Defense Finance and Accounting Service takes the position that a court order from a court of competent jurisdiction must be a U.S. District Court. Now, Frank Whitney wouldn't it please you that you were able to oversee all of these cases coming in asking for documents from the federal government in divorce cases? Wouldn't that make you happy?
Judge, you're muted too.
I said I'd order it back to the U.S. Attorney's Office and have Gil take care of it.
I knew that I'd get something like that from Judge Whitney. What we are finding is that DFAS is taking a very stern position on this, and it's making it very difficult because basically Joe Blow, the service member or the retiree, has no incentive whatsoever to sign a release. And yet the private attorney, the member of the North Carolina State Bar, who desperately needs this information, does not want to be faced with the prospect of going to federal district court to get the government to be ordered to turn it over, especially if it's routine matters like when did Joe Blow enter the military service, what is his current retired pay, things like that. So the idea here is we have a level of cooperation from state National Guard. We have no cooperation from DFAS that either says get a release or take a hike. And so that's why we have the subcommittee on disclosure of information from the government, that we're trying to get a new resource out for those members of the North Carolina State Bar and the legal assistance community to help them figure out what they can get and what it's unlikely for them to get. And if they can get it, how would they obtain it?
Well, again, we appreciate that work and appreciate all the help anyone else can give you. And I know Judge Whitney appreciates it as much as anyone. Okay, how about back to Mike?
Yeah, I think the next item is the amendment to the Service Member Civil Relief Act, Section 3955, dealing with the early termination of motor vehicle and residential leases. On the 1st of March, the Secretary of Defense ordered a stop movement order. So people thought they were deploying, thought they were going to California or Texas or wherever. And the Secretary of Defense said, no, you're not. There's a pandemic. You're not going anywhere. And so that caused a lot of problems, including problems related to leases. So someone from Camp Lejeune, for example, relying on orders to California, would sign a lease thinking he's going out to California, and then all of a sudden he's not, but he's obligated on the lease. So essentially there was a congressional fix. If you can believe this, it was passed by unanimous consent by both houses. How often have you seen that? In any event, it was passed and enacted into law on the 14th of August. Unfortunately, and it is effective back to orders, stop movement orders from the 1st of March. However, the effective date of the lease termination is when you provide the notice. So obviously it couldn't have been before the law was enacted. So if you're still affected by that, or there's another stop movement order in the future, this is a way to avoid some problems.
Gotcha. Any other comments on that from anyone? And on to the SAMA. That
was an interesting decision from the District Court, District of Columbia. SAMA, on behalf of a class of folks, sued the Department of Defense concerning his immigration status. Essentially, a little bit of background here. If you want to become, well, first of all, officers on active duty by law must already be U.S. citizens. That is not the case for enlisted folks. And there are a lot of people who are in the armed forces who are not U.S. citizens. They're legal permanent residents. Their military status gets them a path to citizenship, naturalization, that is much faster than other folks. In fact, by presidential decree, we have been at war since 9/11. for purposes of immigration, which means that after 24 hours of military service, you can immediately apply for naturalization. And then the Department of Defense 3 years ago initiated a policy that said, we're not going to confirm anybody as having served honorably unless they have served a minimum of 6 months in the armed forces. And that minimum service requirement essentially was held to violate the irrelevant statutes. And so, and then the Department of Defense issued a new policy essentially saying we're going to comply with the judge's order in Sama. And so the upshot is that service members can become U.S. citizens faster, as they were prior to 2017, with no length of service requirement, essentially. And the honorable service decision of the commanding officer, the 06 in the chain of command, is determined essentially not to be a judgment call, but just a ministerial action based on records. So again, bottom line is people can apply for citizenship faster than they otherwise would have.
All right.
And I believe I provided the summary of that, a copy of the order, as well as the DOD's policy of October 13th, 2017, that was essentially overturned, and then the DOD's new order saying we're going to comply with Sama.
Well, that's great. Any comments about that? Thank you, Mike. Again, any other new business? All right. Let me ask: are there any comments? Anyone? Any of the council members, particularly that are present with us today? John Willardson, Mike Ramos. Either of you have any comments you'd like to make?
Randy, this is
Mike,
John
Mike.
Willardson. I do not have any comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, I'm having trouble with these mute buttons and everything. No, I don't
Yeah,
have any
me
comment.
too.
Everybody did a good job. Mark Sullivan, as always. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I'd like to thank all of you for being with us today, and again, Mark and Mike Archer and all those who have done so much to provide us with information. I really appreciate all the work you've done. I appreciate the attendance today by some of our new members, certainly our public member there, Patty Head. Thank you so much for being with us. Ellie Morales and Meredith Egan, Michelle Weiner Pike, and thank you so much for being with us today. And of course, the professors, again, John and Ellie, I'm going to miss a chance to attend some CLE up there again, but I look forward to it. Hopefully by next year, we'll be back on track with that. Also want to thank our, what I keep referring to as the adults in the room, with Jennifer Porter and Brittany Wilson trying to keep us straight. And thank you so much. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the LAMP committee? All right. If that's it, appreciate it. I'll